What is up, people? Welcome back to Glen's Reviews for Mistress Peace Theater, where we talk about anything horror-related and mainly nerdy. And I'm very excited to bring you something near and dear to my heart in this episode of Mistress Peace Theater. We're going to be talking about an episode of a cartoon that really helped form who I was growing up, something I really loved. We're going to be talking about an episode of the Real Ghostbusters cartoon from the 80s. So we're going to be digging into the vault here, one of my most prized possessions, the Time Life Real Ghostbusters complete collection. It's got all 7 seasons of this very, very awesome and well-written cartoon series. Well written up until it went and got all kid-friendly on us. It's kind of hard to get a hold of nowadays, but if you can, I highly recommend picking this up. It might be a little bit pricey, but it's damn worth it. Anyway, the episode in question is from Season 1, and it's Episode 11. And it should have been kind of like the first episode of the Real Ghostbusters cartoon in general, because this is kind of it's the canonical continuation of the first movie, which is kind of a bridge to the second movie. I don't know if you ever looked at GameStop or just looked around on eBay or any other kind of like specialty toy website or anything. You might have saw action figures of the Ghostbusters, and they're green. Like, they look like ghosts almost. Well, this episode is going to explain why they made toys of the Ghostbusters like that. It's an episode called Citizen Ghost. Now, this episode of the show actually takes place directly after the Battle of Gozer from the first Ghostbusters movie, and is written by the awesome J. Michael Straczynski, which you guys might know of him. But anyway, J. Michael Straczynski also created Babylon 5, if any of you know that show. I'm sure most of you do. But yeah, he was responsible for a lot of Real Ghostbusters cartoons and comic books and TV shows. Pretty much everything. The guy's pretty much a writing god is what I'm trying to say here. Anyway, a lot of you that have already seen the show know that Slimer kind of became the Ghostbusters mascot and sidekick, and just something friendly that was thrown in for the kids of that generation to kind of adhere to and laugh at, pretty much.
Oh, it's you. Okay, but I didn't know you had your license.
And this episode kind of explains why they chose to keep Slimer around and how he came to come back to the firehouse after the first movie. Anyway, the episode opens up with a reporter named Cynthia Crawford. I wonder if she's any relation to Cindy Crawford. It's a big 80s thing. She was big in the 80s. I don't know. And she's there to interview Peter Venkman to see who the lead Ghostbuster is, the leader of the Ghostbusters, the main hero of the Ghostbusters is. And Peter Venkman's got like a big power trip going on because he thinks that she's all into him. This is where Lorenzo Music really shines, as well as the writing together as Peter Venkman. Him as Peter Venkman. I think he really channels Bill Murray as Peter Venkman, which is weird because Bill Murray really didn't want Lorenzo Music playing Peter Venkman because he sounded too much like Garfield.
Hey, it's Monday in there. Is it Monday out here too? Yep, it's Monday out here too.
But then Bill Murray went on to play Garfield in the live-action movies.
Once again, my life has been saved by the miracle of lasagna.
That's a story for another time. A lot of the writing in this episode channels the first movie very, very well, the humor and everything, and I'll lead into that later. Instead of asking questions about Peter himself, she begins asking questions about Slimer.
Isn't it a bit strange for a bunch of Ghostbusters to have a ghost living with them?
Strange, weird, eccentric, sick. That about covers it.
Which leads Peter to kind of explain the whole story about what happened after the Battle of Gozer. And right after the Battle of Gozer, we also get an explanation of why their suits are different colors.
This came in just before you went up to fight Gozer. It's your new uniforms. Great, huh?
And this is where Egon tells Peter that the suits from the Battle of Gozer absorbed a frightening amount of telekinetic energy and they have to be destroyed. And he leaves that on Peter. Why? I don't know, because he's very much a slacker and a procrastinator. Much like me. Shit, fashioned my whole self on Peter Venkman and Bruce Campbell. Well, soon after, Peter says he'll destroy the suits, but then we start seeing appearances from Slimer in the firehouse, and this is when the guys start to realize that he's around. A lot of this is very like heartwarming and humorous, and really falls in line with the Ghostbusters movie. Actually, I like it. It's really good. He develops relationships with the rest of the Ghostbusters through just encountering them. You can tell he really wants to be a part of their world. Like, he runs into Egon and wants to know what his little scientific experiments are, and Egon wants to experiment on him, but he kind of gives up after he gets a whiff of Slimer's breath. Slimer runs into Ray fixing the Ecto-1. Of course, Peter sees him and he wants him out of the firehouse based on what he did in the first movie to him.
What happened? Are you okay? He slimed me.
And throughout a lot of it, Peter's just convinced that Slimer just came back just to finish him off.
It's him! It's the one who slimed me at the hotel! Get him!
Until the real threat of the episode emerges. So instead of destroying the suits, Peter just kind of kicked them underneath a table right by the containment unit, where they absorbed more ectoplasmic energy and manifested into clones of them. Then they went on to attack them while they were sleeping. The Spectre Ghostbusters kind of escape the firehouse, and weeks later they kind of catch up with the Ghostbusters in a spectacular firefight out in the streets of New York. So the Ghostbusters try to derive a plan to stop their ghostly doubles, but the evil clones break into the firehouse, steal the Ecto-1 and all of their proton packs, except for one proton pack that only has half a charge. The Ghostbusters figure out that the proton packs that the ghosts are wearing are actually made of ectoplasmic energy, the same energy that they're running on, kind of. So all they have to do is just run their power out by just drawing their fire somewhere and just weakening them enough to just get rid of them altogether. So the guys come to the conclusion that someone's got to go out there and draw their fire and weaken them, and someone might not be coming back. And this is where the humor really shines through and is really similar to the movie.
Who can we afford to lose?
Oh, Janine! Just kidding, just kidding!
And this is where Slimer finally gets his redemption with Peter Venkman, because when Ray mentions that he's going to go out there and draw their fire, and he's willing to just sacrifice himself for the good of the Ghostbusters, this is where Slimer says, and he goes out there like Mexican jumping beans and goes all over the firehouse, jumping and bouncing all over the walls, drawing their fire and weakening them, allowing the guys to get their proton packs. And this leads to one of the best lines in the whole show, and one of the best lines in Ghostbusters history.
Say goodnight, fellas, because the real Ghostbusters are here to stay.
God damn. The line still gives me goosebumps to this day, but it would have worked better in this context.
Say goodnight, fellas, because the real Ghostbusters are here to stay.
The episode even ends on a humorous note. Peter thinks the reporter's all into him and stuff. When the report comes on TV and the Ghostbusters are all watching it, she actually says that Slimer is actually the hero of the whole story, and he's pretty much the leader of the Ghostbusters and stuff, which angers Peter a little bit, but he ultimately takes Slimer in as his friend and just plays it all lightheartedly and stuff.
I never liked you, and this is my popcorn, Spud. Oh well, win some, lose some.
I really love this episode. I really love this show. But this episode is one I really wanted to talk about. It's a really important episode in Ghostbusters history. Anyway, I rambled on long enough. It's good to be back. My name's Glen Lentz. If you want to see more of my videos, go to youtube.com/GlenLentz. Mistress Peace Theater will be right back.